Right now, we are getting into my top 5 questions entering the 2024 NFL season. Season's about 30 days away, folks. It is right around the corner. We've got preseason games getting underway. Obviously, the Hall of Fame game already happened. Was that a real preseason game? I'll leave that for y'all to determine. But we're getting into the biggest questions for me personally entering the 2024 campaign around the NFL. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. We're going to dive into it. We're going to start off with the Ravens offensive line. Like, will it be okay? 3 new starters, obviously, which you never really want to go into a season with 3 new starters on the offensive line with an offensive line that performed pretty darn well. But the Ravens are a team that has done this before, and they do a good job. Like, they seemingly don't skip a beat when they shuffle in and out guys with their offensive line. Obviously, you still have Ronnie Stanley, who is, when healthy, one of the best in the game. It's been a struggle to keep him healthy as of late. You're hoping you can do that this year. Tyler Linderbaum at center is a stalwart, great football player, great athlete. But you're entering Andrew Voorhees into the lineup at guard. It looks like Daniel Faalele, one of the biggest offensive linemen on the planet, entering the starting lineup at guard, potentially at right guard. And then obviously at right tackle, you've got your Roger Rosengarten draft pick, and you've also got Patrick McCarry. So I do believe, and then Ben Cleveland is also a backup at guard. He's a guy that has started games for them in the past. Ultimately, I believe that this will be good enough because I think the offensive design will be good enough. I think Lamar Jackson's good enough, the skill position players, and I just think the Ravens do a good job getting the most out of the players they have. Like, the guys that exited outside of Kevin Zeitler, they weren't big names. I mean, Morgan Moses has been around, but this is a guy that's, bounced around the league. He's a fine player. He's not a great player. And then Simpson, that's nothing special to replace there. So you look at the guys that they're replacing, and Kevin Zeitler, he's on the back end of his career, obviously. So I don't think that there's going to be some massive drop off. Now, the question for the Ravens is they're not only trying to stick with where they were last year. They're trying to advance. They're trying to get to the Super Bowl. They're trying to win it all. And is this offensive line good enough to help them get past the Chiefs, to help them get past some of the tougher teams in the AFC, which I think the AFC playoffs is going to be more difficult this year. I think the Bills are going to be more competitive. I think the Jets, if healthy, are going to be more competitive. I think that you look at the Bengals within their own division. That could be tough. If the Browns, another team we're going to talk about, if they're healthy and playing their best football. Like, there's a lot that you have to get through in the AFC. And is this offensive line good enough to help them get past where they were last year? I do like the fact that Zay Flowers is going into year 2. This entire offense is going into year 2, right? In this scheme, which is a good thing. And you add Derrick Henry to the mix. That's a very good thing. It's going to make you more difficult to stop down the stretch. Zay Flowers going into year 2. Mark Andrews healthy. Isaiah Likely. Rashad Bateman, I've always been a huge fan of. I really hope he can stay healthy and kind of really hit his stride this year. But ultimately, I would have a hard time saying that the Ravens offensive line will be good enough to impose their will against a team like the Chiefs down the stretch. Like, they couldn't do it last year. Can they do it this year with this offensive line? Is Derrick Henry going to be the ultimate difference maker? Maybe. But I think the Ravens offensive line will be fine. I don't think they're going to be better, even though I love Roger Rosengarten. I really do. Andrew Voorhees is a player who, powerful, obviously was coming off the ACL last year. We'll see how it plays out. I still don't have the Ravens up on the same tier with the Chiefs, but I do think that they're a legitimate contender. Absolutely do. And I think their offensive line will be good enough. Are the Eagles good enough at linebacker? Very interesting question, because this is a team that's loaded with talent. I know some people look around their roster and say they're not as good as they were. Yeah, they lost Jason Kelsey. That's a huge loss, no question. But this is still one of the most talented offensive and defensive rosters in the NFL. And I think that just the professional level of coaching they're going to get from a Vic Fangio and a Kellen Moore is going to be enough to get them back to a place that they want to be. But again, my question is about the linebacker position. And I know everyone's like, oh, off-ball linebacker doesn't matter. You look at the best teams in the NFL, they have some of the best off-ball linebackers, bottom line. And so they bring in Devin White, who once upon a time was a very exciting player. Lately, I think he's been more of a catalyst for gray hairs than anything else. You've got Zach Bond, who comes over from New Orleans, maybe a steadying presence. Nakobe Dean, can he stay healthy and find the field? There's a lot more questions at linebacker than answers right now for the Philadelphia Eagles. And you look through the rest of the roster, it looks like a Super Bowl caliber roster. I've talked about it a lot. I'm not a Nick Sirianni guy, but I think the two coaching hires he made at coordinator are going to benefit the Philadelphia Eagles this year. I think linebacker, though, if they're going to win it all, they need good play from that position. And I'm not sure that they're going to get very good play at linebacker at this point. We'll see how it plays out. 49ers. Looks like they're on the precipice of potentially trading Brandon Ayuk. According to NFL Network, a lot of folks around, it's much more likely that a trade happens than a long-term extension happens with Brandon Ayuk. And they're reportedly, according to, San Francisco NBC or Bay Area NBC, close with the Browns, with the Patriots. We'll see how it plays out. But are they good enough without Brandon Ayuk and without Dre Greenlaw? Let's not forget Dre Greenlaw, a massive, massive piece to the puzzle in San Francisco coming off the Achilles in the Super Bowl. That game changed when he left it. Yes, you did bring in Campbell from Green Bay, who I think is more than adequate. But Dre Greenlaw was, with Fred Warner, I think that made the best linebacker duo in football. And you're not going to have that at least for a good portion of the season. And when Dre Greenlaw does come back, how healthy will he be? How long will it take for him to get back to the type of guy that was making a huge, huge impact? So these two pieces, these two potential losses for the 49ers, are they good enough without them? And I'm not saying good enough to win the NFC. I think they still are. The talent level is still awesome in San Francisco. Coaching is still awesome in San Francisco. It's going to be really interesting to see what Brandon Staley does there. I think that's an underrated storyline, a question. Can Brandon Staley recapture the magic of what he did at times early on with the Chargers and with the Rams as a defensive mastermind, a game plan defensive coordinator? We're going to find out, but I really do question, without a Dre Greenlaw fully healthy, without Brandon Ayuk, are you telling me you just want to rely on Ricky Pearsall that much in the Brandon Ayuk role? I'm a Gator fan. I love Ricky Pearsall. I was a big fan of him in the draft. Had him as a second-round pick. They got him at the end of the first round, but that's a lot to me. And I know you have McCaffrey and Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Jawan Jennings, but losing Brandon Ayuk would hurt. He's perfect for that offense. It really would. So we're going to see how that plays out if they end up trading him. And then will Jeff Hafley in Green Bay, their new defensive coordinator, former Boston College Eagles head coach, get more out of that defense? That defense is talented. And they added some linebackers who I think really fit the mold of what he wants to do in the draft this year. Talk about Cooper and the kid from Missouri as well. Those guys can fly downhill. They can make plays. And you already have Quay Walker, I think, a guy that probably will be better suited to execute in this defense. The defensive front is loaded with talent. The secondary has a lot of talent. I'm excited to see what Jeff Hafley can do with that defense, because if you take the 2023 Green Bay Packers down the stretch and you add a defense that's attacking and aggressive and taking away some of the things that offenses do best and kind of being the instigator, not reacting, but forcing action, that could be huge for the Green Bay Packers. And I still think the Green Bay Packers, I've talked about it here, I have them as the second best team in the NFC behind the behind the 49ers right now. And I think that there's a very good chance for them to make it to the Super Bowl this year. With Matt LaFleur, who's an unbelievable head coach, unbelievable offensive mind, Jordan Love taking massive steps forward, skill position talent all over the place. You've got talent on the offensive line. I think the Packers are going to be really interesting, and it's ultimately going to come down to what Jeff Hafley can do with that defense. Final question here. Will the real DeShaun Watson please stand up? It sounds like the Cleveland Browns might be one of those teams in the mix for Brandon Ayuk, again, according to Bay Area NBC. I mean, how unbelievable would that be? And this is a team that has continually capitalized on being able to acquire wide receivers under market value. mostly via trade. Can they do it again? And it looks like the framework of that might also include a veteran, so maybe Amari Cooper, which I do think Ayuk is an upgrade over Amari Cooper, but not a massive, massive upgrade. But still, it would be nice. You get younger, you get a little bit more talented at this point in the career. I think you get a little bit more versatility there, and you have a very nice receiving core, good tight end, pass catching tight end, and David Njoku. Offensive line does have some injury questions right now, Nick Chubb injury questions, but ultimately, and the defense is going to be stand out again this year. But DeShaun Watson. What can we get out of DeShaun Watson in Cleveland? If he can play anywhere close to what he did in Houston, you could be looking at a Super Bowl contender. If he plays more like how he's played during his time in Cleveland, you could be looking at a team that doesn't make the playoffs. Bottom line. So it's going to be a pivotal question. If you get DeShaun Watson playing like he did in Houston, this could be the best team in the NFL. But if you see what you've seen the last couple of years, might be on the outside looking in. It's going to be fascinating to see. I think there were glimpses, hints of him becoming more of that guy, but I need to see a lot more before I feel comfortable, proclaiming that DeShaun Watson is back, and obviously not someone that I'm rooting for personally. I love the Browns organization, what they've done, coaching staff, general manager, a lot of the talent that they have, but can't get on board with him personally off the field. But on the field, can he play more like the guy that they were expecting to get when they made that massive trade for him, signed him to an unrealistic, unbelievable deal? Can he be that guy? If he can, again, I think that's a Super Bowl team. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Y'all have a good one.